All right, high rollers, really looking forward to our chat today. Poker player, professional gambler, sports bettor. He has a wealth of knowledge in the wagering wonderland that is pro gambling. A line shopper, a guy who spots inefficiencies in the betting market and pounces. Proficient at poker when Black Friday crippled the U.S. online game, he transitioned into writing and now handles the great content at safestbettingsites.com. Joseph Falchetti is with us. Joseph, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for being our high roller today.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
Listen, we got to start with the NFL. Week 10 is upon us. I know you bet on the games. You cover them closely. Again, the website is safestbettingsites.com, at SBS_authority on Twitter. His handle is at Joseph Falchetti. What's happening this year? I know Week 9 was a disaster for sportsbooks. Read a few articles on that. They've taken a beating the past few weeks. I mean, what can we chalk this up to?
Usually whenever the sportsbooks don't do well, like the sharp bettors in a lot of ways don't do well too. So the public had a really good week. And, I'm not going to lose sleep over the sportsbooks having a rough week. They're going to be perfectly fine. So they win a lot of money in the end. And these bad weeks happen. There's a lot written about it. But it's just the way gambling goes sometimes. So.
Yeah, the bottom line is they're going to be all right.
Yeah, I think they're going to be okay. I think they're going to be okay.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is when the public wins, the people that really put the time in and look for the edges, they sometimes lose.
I would say that that's normally the case. I mean, it's not always as cut and dry as that, but most of the time, I would say that is the way it works out. I mean, a lot of the time, you would see public and sharps on the same game sometimes. It depends. I mean, it's about the line movement and, how it turns out from that perspective. So.
How have you liked the National Football League this season? Has it been going well?
I'm just like, a guy that is, I'm up at 8, 9 in the morning, even before that sometimes, and it's till the late game ends. So I'm there all day doing live betting and halftime betting, all kinds of stuff. It's been a good season so far. I mean, last week was not good for me. Because, kind of like what I said, almost all the public sides won, except New Orleans. I had a good bit on New Orleans, and they ended up breaking the streak of the Rams on the undefeated streak. But, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of effort, a lot of time put into it. So
yeah, absolutely. I understand that when you want to delve into sports betting, if you're going around 55%, you're doing well. But you got to put the time in and spot those edges. It's a tough task.
It is, and there's a lot of ways to win on sports. I mean, one thing I would say for new bettors, you really have a good opportunity to get a lot of deposit bonuses when you sign up. And you have to roll the money over, so you have to bet through it, usually like 10 times. But that really helps, add money to your bankroll early on. And then you can do things like proposition betting is another area. There are sports which are a little weaker. And there's a lot of sports books that are geared towards recreational players. So their lines are not going to be as sharp as like a Pinnacle Sports or as a bookmaker. Bookmaker.eu. So if you go to those sites, you can sort of find lines that are, I wouldn't say like stale, but are a little bit off market. So you can sort of look at the lines that some of the top sportsbooks have the sharpest and try to see what's different from their odds versus the more recreational based sportsbooks that are catering to more public betting players. They'll sort of shade the lines.
Right, the first timers. Now, you're not a first timer. You've been doing this since you were 17 years old, so you've been doing it quite a while, betting on sports. And I understand you mentioned it there. You touched on it, a process called line shopping. You said you look for stale lines. Can you explain the process? I mean, with all the sports books, that takes some time on your end, doesn't it, to go through all these lines?
It does. There's a few of them that I would recommend over other ones, like Bovada is one. I would say Heritage Sports, even like sportsbetting.ag and Bet Online, stuff, those sites. You can go through and look even closer to game time. I mean, 10 minutes before the game starts and still see some stuff that's inefficient or not right with the sharpest sports book. So that's one way. And then, you could bet earlier in the week if you see a line that you really like. I do a little bit of that too. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. In-play betting, there's a lot of ways to win on the NFL. I would say it's a lot easier than the other sports out there.
When you talk about line shopping and spotting these inefficiencies, you use the term stale lines. Basically, as the bets come in, the line gets adjusted. Some of those lines don't move as quick as others. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly, but in some cases they won't move them for a reason because they're sort of heavier on the side that, they're not moving it because they're getting a lot of action from the public. Or they're just deciding we're not going to follow the market, which is usually a bad idea, I think. But sportsbooks will follow the market. Like once one sportsbook moves, they all move. But that's not always the case. So, sometimes sportsbooks will leave stuff up. Sometimes it's because they're asleep at the wheel, like they're lazy. There's a lot of reasons for it. You have to decide if you feel like it's worth making the bet. If it's off from whatever the rest of the market is, I feel like that is the right decision. So it's up to you to sort of decide that for yourself.
You gave a great tip there, betting early. I mean, if you find a line early in the week and you think it's wrong, you just got to pounce on it right there. But you also talk about ways of beating sports, attacking propositions, and something called, and forgive the ignorance, arbitrage. Can you explain those two for us?
So propositions are like a player prop or even like team props. These are sort of things like over-under receiving yards, over-under passing yards, stuff like that. If a player will score a touchdown. So those markets, they're low limits. I would say like maybe if you could find a good local bookie, you could get more down on them. That's another tip. But I'd say like $500 maybe or $1,000 at the most for some of these. But if you're a new bettor, there are definitely markets that are not as sharp because there's not a lot of high limit bettors or people that are firing like tens of thousands of dollars on games betting these. They're not watched by the odds makers quite as well. And they don't have the time to devote each week to making, updating these lines and diving really heavily into, the number of receiving yards that Odell Beckham's going to have or whatever the case may be. So if you really break down the games, look at other sports books, if you look at the sharper sports books props, compare them to maybe a sports book that's not as sharp on the props, I think that's an excellent spot to attack, especially if you're new to betting. So, and I still do it now, even because I find more opportunities to do it. Like sometimes a sportsbook will limit you immediately on props. Like I've bet props for 2 days, and then they're like, you have a $50 limit. So they're definitely an area where you can attack, but they can also tell you, all right, well, we're sick of your action on this.
Okay, and what about arbitrage?
That's basically finding two different prices in the betting market, and you're able to bet both sides and get yourself a profit.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
See, the situation with that is that, like, sometimes you could say, I just want to bet the side that I think is the right side because there's that much of a difference. But sometimes it's really hard to tell which side's the right side, especially if it's a sport or an event that you don't fully understand. So if you see, one side has the odds here and one side has the odds here, and you can bet both sides, and right in the middle there's a small profit, that's free money. It's certainly worth doing. It's something I do not as often as probably betting what I think is the sharp side, but it's definitely a strategy for sure. And it's a no risk strategy as long as you trust the sports books to honor your bets. So
the bottom line is when you hear about all these great gamblers, they always seem to find an edge, and that's what you got to do. You got to put the time in, put the homework in, and if you spot the edge, you got to be willing to take it.
I would agree with you on that for the most part. I still think there's a place for arbitrage if that's the way you want to go about it, and it's another way to make money betting sports. So, there's a lot of ways to do it. You kind of just have to figure out what's best for you.
A lot's happened with respect to sports betting in the U.S. over the years. You're quoted in an article from back in 2014, a Forbes article. It's sad to see that common sense didn't prevail in court, but New Jersey's coming appeal should be exciting. They certainly have a fighting chance to win, and if they succeed, the sports betting landscape in the U.S. may forever be changed. Now, I know it's legal in Jersey, right? A big decision back in June. What is the sports betting landscape in the United States right now?
It's interesting. There's a couple states that have made it legal with the Supreme Court decision. So New Jersey did prevail in their appeals, and it did go to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court did rule that the Professional Amateur Sports Act was unconstitutional. So states now can decide we're going to legalize sports betting in our state. And West Virginia has done it. My home state of Pennsylvania has done it. There's not sports books open yet, but a couple states have done it. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, I don't think that local bookies, like your corner bookies, are going to go out of business tomorrow. I don't think the offshore bookies are going to go out of business tomorrow. As far as the sports books in the States, it'll be interesting. The thing is, you have to look at tax rate because sometimes these states can overtax things. I think Pennsylvania is one of them. But you're going to be able to bet with sports books. You're going to be able to bet offshore. You're going to be able to bet with your local bookie, Tony. So it'll be really interesting to see how it all shakes out, what the best options are, how legal sports betting will change, sports in the United States. I'm hoping for me and bettors, there's a lot of competition between all three of these ways that you can place bets. And maybe that'll all be better bonuses and better odds for gamblers. So that's my hope for it.
Okay, now, When we talk about poker in the United States, obviously the industry took a major hit back in 2011 with Black Friday. You started in poker, right? You're in Pittsburgh. I guess you really took a hit. Maybe that's why everything transitioned for you.
I mean, yeah, I had money in full tilt, and I had a large portion of my bankroll in full tilt, and I didn't get that back for, I think, 3 years later. So certainly, poker is a lot tougher now. It was a lot better a game back, in the poker room years, which were like 2003 to 2006, and I think it slowly tapered off since then. A lot of reasons are because of Black Friday. Other reasons, players got better. There's a lot of reasons why. I would say it's still decent in some games, like Pot Limit Omaha. I heard a game that players would want to learn or get into. I feel like Hold'em's a really tough game at this point to profit from, but there's still hope for poker. Like there's a couple states that are legalizing it, including my state as well. It's not online yet, but a few states like Nevada, you can play there. So, and you can play on offshore sites too. So it's just tougher. That's all.
After the moneymaker went in 2003, you talked about 2006 for the boom years when gold won. I mean, it was crazy. So many people taking up the game with little knowledge. And you're right. I mean, man, has it changed. So much material out there for study purposes, all these online tracking devices they've got. The technology is crazy. Everyone is better. It's really tough. I'm wondering if there's a comparison there with sports betting. More markets open up. People start to take it seriously. They think, hey, there's money here to be made. They start putting in the time, and it really becomes a skill game, right?
I think it's a skill game now, sort of. My whole thing with this whole, is poker luck or skill, or sports betting luck or skill, it's both. There's luck and there's skill involved with it, too. So, there's a lot of variance and of outcomes, so, that's just the way gambling is. But also there's a skill element to it as well. So I think with sports betting, it's a little bit farther away from, the average square bettor, becoming, as good as the average poker player at this point. Just based on my conversations with people that bet sports when I'm in Vegas and stuff, I would say that they're a little farther away because they're betting a lot of 6-17 parlays, very rarely betting straight bets and stuff like that. So I think they're a little far away. It may happen eventually because sports is becoming more legal and it's becoming more socially accepted. Is really what it's about to bet on sports.
Now, you talk about poker. I've known a few poker players who like to dabble in the sports. And of course, if you play poker, you think you're a great poker player, right? Everyone thinks they're the best. And then you go and bet on sports and you think you got a handle on things, but it's tough. I mean, the margins are slim. What is some advice that you'd give to beginners? And I guess, first off, it would be checking out sites like safestbettingsites.com, right, to get your bonuses and to find out where you should begin.
Absolutely. The sports books that we have on safestbettingsites.com, I mean, I've played it, all of them. I would never, our top sports books that we refer players to, I stand by them as good options that they'll pay you. A lot of them have really excellent bonuses, competitive lines, fast payouts, all the stuff that you would need. So it's funny you mention poker. I've always say there's two topics at a poker table. It's sports and sports betting. So
Yep.
It's the same. It's the same people doing everything, and we're all poker players and sports bettors. We're all one.
We like the action.
Yeah, of course. When you start out, first of all, the one thing I would say is try to maximize that deposit bonus. Sports betting bonuses are not worth the same amount as actual cash, but if you get the full deposit bonus, you'll be able to have a lot more money to play with early on and be able to withstand the swings.
Right.
And another thing is, I have a bankroll management article on there and a LineShopping article. Those are probably my two favorite articles, just because it teaches people you gotta have money at multiple sports books so you can get the best odds possible whenever you're making a bet. Way too many people have one sports book and then just bet whatever the line is there. That's a huge mistake. Always look around and get the best line you can for the bet you want to make. And another thing I would say is you have to establish some sort of bankroll management. You shouldn't be going all in every weekend. You shouldn't be taking all your winnings from Sunday and putting them on the Monday night game. You have to have some sort of plan in place where you take 1-2% of your bankroll and put that on each game. Maybe your biggest bet's 5% of your bankroll, something like that. And you shouldn't be doing those very often. So you've got to have some sort of self-control and plan in place before you start betting sports. That would be my best advice on that.
I'll tell you what, you mentioned two things there, having multiple accounts. I think I struggle with that when you find a site and, I got to download another, so I'll just go back to this site. Well, you're not getting the right line, as you just mentioned there. And the other thing is bankroll management. And through poker, I mean, I started off terrible in that. I wanted it all in. I wanted to play.
Everyone does. Everyone does.
So I've gotten better at that, and I play within my limits now, and I keep money in the account, and I can survive the swings, and I can add to it and all that sort of stuff. Those are two great points, I think, where poker and gambling are pretty similar. Bankroll management is very important. I don't think enough people look at it.
Absolutely, it's the number one thing that kill. I mean, hey, you know what? There's guys, professional poker players, like big names you've heard of, and they can't get it right. All the full tilt pros and all those guys that you heard, in the poker room, a lot of them went broke, and it's because they're great players, but they really like the action. So, I mean, you really, it's the most important thing. I mean, the worst thing you can do if you're a profitable gambler and you can win money at poker or sports betting or whatever you want, whatever you're doing, is to have no money. So, you have to be bigger than your ego. You have to drop down in stakes. You have to decide, okay, I've had a bad weekend. I need to bet a little bit less. It takes a little hit sometimes. I used to think I was a 5'10" NL player or this or that. Well, if you have to drop down to play and rebuild a little bit, that's just the part of life. That's the way it works.
I find it interesting that you say the bet should be around 1 or 2% of your bankroll, and that's pretty safe, it seems.
I mean, it is safe because you don't want to go too wild with. You can lose every bet you make that day. Everyone thinks, I bet 20 games today or whatever the case may be. I can't lose them all. You can. I mean, I've had a college football day. I went 1-13. This year. So I mean, it happens. You have to realize that you can lose a lot of money. You can lose every bet. Sometimes people don't realize how crushing variance can be sometimes in luck. So that's just the reality.
And I guess, like in poker and gambling, you have a 1-13 week. A lot of people, that would put them on tilt. And then they start making the big bets and lose even more.
That's the whole thing. I mean, you have to stay off. You can't get on the tilt train. You got to stay off the train. You have to keep it, I hate to say don't be emotionless about it because it should be fun too, but you have to sort of just realize that okay, this happens sometimes. I'm not going to change my whole strategy or up my bets on the late game or this or that just because you've got some bad results. So once you do it long enough, you'll feel a little more confident that you don't have to change things.
I was on the site today. I like it. There's a lot of great content on there. You mentioned the signing bonuses. I don't think enough people take advantage of those. You've got all the details on that on the site. The mandate on the website reads, quote, even with all the scum in the offshore industry, sports books and affiliates alike, it's still an excellent time to be an online sports bettor in the U.S. There are a ton of safe betting websites. The odds and markets available in Nevada or with your neighborhood bookie pale in comparison to the vast marketplace that online sports betting world offers. So there really is a lot of choice out there, right? And the website, safestbettingsites.com, really outlines to the reader where they should start in terms of safety, in terms of, the signing bonuses, in terms of all the great things available.
Absolutely, and we have a scam sportsbook section too that sort of has a lot of the ones that you should avoid. So if you could check those out as well. But no, you really can't. So the thing with your local bookie is you can't get a deposit bonus with your local bookie. You can't do that. So and he's not as reliable. And I mean, if you're not in Vegas or one of these states that have legal sports betting, you don't really have another option besides offshore sports betting. And there's a lot of sites with a lot of excellent limits, a lot of bonuses. In terms of number of markets, like props, like exotics, live betting, all the offshores are way better than Vegas. So you're going to have the best of all the worlds, really, when it comes to betting offshore and betting online.
What is the current state of offshore betting? Is it safe?
I would say it is. It just depends on the site. I mean, there's sites in offshore betting that have been paying people without any issues for 20 years. So I would say that it is pretty safe. It's about the sites. We have extensive reviews on every site. I like to say that the reviews we have are better than any site on the internet, and I believe that because we really go deep into each aspect of the sports book. And we're pointing players to the ones that pay on time, that offer the best bonuses, that offer the best odds. So I think there's definitely a lot of great options in the offshore online sports betting world.
Now, is that the big thing when you talk about safety with these betting sites? Is once you put your money in, if you have a big winner, you're going to be able to get your money out. I mean, there's a lot of skepticism. A lot of people put some money in, never expecting to get it out.
Well, most people don't end up cashing out because most people lose at gambling. That's just the way it is in reality.
Right.
But if you're going to be betting, you have to be able to be sure that you're going to get paid. So if you can't be sure that you're going to get paid, you can't really be betting. You have to be sure that you're going to be paid. And the top sites that we recommend at Safest Betting Site are certainly ones that are going to pay you. So
on your homepage, it says, looking for online sports books to bet on sports, honest and in-depth reviews, plus free picks by expert writers, sports betting questions. We're here to help. And I mentioned I was running through the website today. A lot of great content. I saw an article from you that you recently wrote about the U.S. midterm elections, and I thought, betting on elections. Now, isn't that interesting? But why not, right? And I read through the article, and you guys basically called it exactly. The House went to the Dems, and the Republicans retained the Senate. So congrats on that.
Well, thanks. It's funny that it's so big now. I mean, on Twitter during election night, I'm looking at all these updates, and everyone's with opinions on it, and people are quoting offshore odds. It really is crazy how, I think, especially since it's been so much in the news with sports betting and the Supreme Court decision, that this year I think people were really betting heavily on the election, and it's cool to see. I mean, it seems like it's becoming a cool thing to be betting on elections. Maybe we'll keep that train rolling for 2020 and everything in between.
I'll tell you what, it's hot right now. I mean, both sides, they're going toe-to-toe, and it's really interesting. You know, you mentioned Twitter, it's just going nuts. So why not bet on it? Put your money where your mouth is. Unbiased online sports betting site reviews, strategy advice, cash-out reports, free picks, relevant news, a great blog on there. The website is safestbettingsites.com. Our guest today, Joseph Falchetti, at SBS_authority on Twitter. He is at Joseph Falchetti on Twitter, a gambler, poker player, and writer. Again, thank you so much, man. Appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.